The guy that won, I won't comment on his physique. I reckon he would have had to be eating 10 to 15 kilos of chicken breast per day for the last 20 years. I'll leave it there. What's going on YouTube? It's Jason, and in this video, we're going to be discussing the dark side of natural bodybuilding. The stuff they don't tell you about before you sign up. Now, I did my first show around 2 weeks ago. I was keen and starry-eyed to do my first show and thought that it would solve all the problems that I encountered in the untested show. But there were things that I saw on the day and things that I found out about since, now the dust has settled, that made me a little bit uncomfortable, shall we say, and left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. What I'm going to do is be open and go through those things with you so that you can make a decision for yourself should you decide to compete in future. So, point number one, and probably the most frustrating of all the points, is testing. The testing protocols in natural bodybuilding are shady, to say the least. And there are two parts to this. Number one, all the athletes paid for a urine sample before the show. But once I got to the show, I realized that only the overall winner was going to get tested. So essentially, there were like 7 classes, I think class A to class G. The winner of those individual categories goes through to the overall, and the winner of the overall is tested. But everyone else is not tested. I saw some guys backstage and I was like, this guy is definitely on. I'm going to say like half of the people had taken something or were on something, and they weren't tested because they didn't win the overall. Again, it undermines the integrity of natural bodybuilding competition, and it kind of made me think, what's the point in me being here? And the second part of testing, and I guess they can't do much about this because of budget, but it's still pretty annoying, is that they only use urine samples. Urine samples test what's in your system now, and they can trace back up to, I think, a month, but it doesn't tell me what you were taking January till September. A lot of these guys were probably blasting gear, cleared it out of their system by September, just in case they won, and then by November, they were natural. Or some of them who finished second didn't even get tested at all. Again, for me, it undermines the integrity of natural bodybuilding. You know, put a lie detector test in there. Ask them, have you taken steroids in the last 7 years, or have you taken steroids ever? And do the urine sample. Then we can tell. The guy that won, I won't comment on his physique. I reckon he would have had to be eating 10 to 15 kilos of chicken breast per day for the last 20 years. I'll leave it there. But on the day, he was natural. Number two, coaches who sponsored the show and were also very good friends of those who organized the show also had athletes in the show. Now, normally I would turn a blind eye to this. I couldn't care less. All I need to do is bring my best. But when that coaches or those coaches' athletes are placing first and second in all of their categories, it does leave some questions about the conflict of interest. And so I'm sitting there like, is this actually happening? Again, I may have lost fair and square. The guy that I came up against was leaner than me. I take the L. I need to be better next time, if there is a next time. But it just kind of creates doubt. Like, you know, the people that won and those that finished second, were they the best on the day? Or did they just have a good wording with the judges? Because of what I saw on the day, I attended a couple of bodybuilding gyms since the competition to ask experienced bodybuilders whether or not this actually happens or whether I was just seeing things on the day. And apparently it goes even a step further than that. Like, there are coaches that literally just pay the judges. Now, I don't know whether that's the Two Bros Pro Federation, but if it happens in other federations, who knows? Number three, the categories. Now, I competed in men's physique. They had, I think, class A to class F or G. There were 2 people in my class. So I finished second, but I finished second in a 2-horse race. Some people, get this, were in a class on their own. So they literally went up and posed on their own and won a first place medal. And then some of the coaches had the audacity to be like, my client finished first in a category of 1. What are we doing here? Like the category of 1, 2, any less than 3, to be honest, for me is just like pointless. People spend most of the year preparing and they come to compete, of course, to win, but they want feedback. They want to measure up against other people and see how they do. Putting someone up against like one other person or no one, for me, is just outrageous. And why you wouldn't bunch up different categories together so that there is actually some sort of competition. And the final thing on natural bodybuilding is that if you are going to do the full-on competitive route and compete every single season, if you are truly natural, there is only so much you can improve. I mentioned this before in other videos. When you are in the honeymoon stage of training, like your first year, 2 years, you can make a lot of progress. In years 3 to 5, you can still make some progress. After 5 years of solid training, you know, someone like me, 20 years into my training journey, I am literally eking out muscle at 1 to 2 pounds a year. Now, I know some of you may be sitting back thinking, oh, but didn't your DEXA scan show 3.8 kilos gain? We will find out how much of that is muscle when I test again next month, because now I'm at my leanest state. So now we will see how much of that 3.8 kilo gain is actual lean tissue. I'm happy to eat my words and stand corrected, but somehow I think that number will be smaller. But let's see. And so yeah, on that point, if you're competing in natural bodybuilding, for me, there's almost no point in going back next year because I'm not going to have any significant muscle improvements. Now, could I go again because I could have been leaner than I was? Maybe. But like, if you got dwarfed on stage by somebody, you're not going to massively improve in a year's time. So yeah, on reflection, it just made me realize something, that by nature, bodybuilding is not a natural sport. And that's why they've tried to get it into things like the Olympics and other competitive games, but they can't, because essentially when steroids are involved at such a high level, I mean, potentially even at the natural level as well, there is no way of actually telling how good someone is and essentially managing it, right? Because it's anyone's game. And so yeah, bodybuilding by nature isn't natural. They do natural shows, but they're not that bothered or stringent with the testing, because it's like, well, they're almost just doing it for the sake of doing it, rather than actually believing in the natural show. But yeah, that's my experience of my first bodybuilding show. I enjoyed the experience, and I'm glad that Razor Sharp is coming to an end in a few weeks. And I've definitely seen the benefits mentally and even in business, my day-to-day, just because I've gone on this shred and disciplined my body. So it definitely wasn't a waste of time. But yeah, that is everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like it if you did. Subscribe to my channel to follow me on this journey, and I'll see you again soon.